Good morning, everyone. Let me know if I'm audible.
Yes.
Thank you. Let's start. So, this is your first chapter in Module 3. Actually, if you look at all the chapters, they're very, very small chapters giving you basic idea of business intelligence and most of the data mining algorithms, which we'll discuss. Half of them would have studied as part of machine learning. So, become an overview, and I would suggest that review your ML course, refresh it, and once you do that, it may become a lot more easier for you to understand the content of this. Last two lectures, we basically looked at general business intelligence, what it means, what data analytics is, what are the phases of when you do data analysis or data chain flow. You have raw data, then it goes to database, then you have a data warehousing, and then you do analytics, data mining, and then you basically make a report or intelligence or whatever you like to say. So today we'll refine more on what a BI basically means, what is involved. Like BI gives you two kind of decisions, strategic and operational, what the difference is. And then chapter talks about number of application areas where BI can be used. These areas could be health, government or public sector, education, telecom, medical, retail, logistics, manufacturing, you name it, and BI can be used almost everywhere. So first we look at review BI concept, which are done last two lectures, and then we briefly look at each of the industry, how BI can play a role in those respective sectors. Next lecture, we get into more details on data warehousing, its architecture, how it can be used. And then next chapter would be data visualization. And again, as I said, there are small chapters, so probably each chapter would probably take one lecture or two, depending on the lecture sizes. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask, interject, and let me know, and that should be fine. And again, as I said, we'll have a guest lecture from Dr. Anil Maheshwari on 17th of June. It will be general overall business analytics. So please do send me your questions you would like to ask, you would like Professor Maheshwari to answer, so that I can communicate that to him after consolidating it, and our lecture could be a lot more beneficial. Normally, I don't make it mandatory guest lectures, but this lecture, since it's coming from the author and from the course, I would say it is mandatory for every one of you to attend this lecture. So make sure that all of you attend and get benefit out of it. And those who don't attend, they should give me explanation why they could not attend it. So let's start. We look at BIDM cycle. We have a business, and business basically is that does something needful, meets somebody's needs or its customer needs, provide a service, and in that process earn some money for its own living, does analytics, uses that analytics intelligence to improve upon the business. Any business, any interaction you do with the business, in teaching, you attend classes, lecture delivery, eating at the canteen, buying things in the stationery shop, taking a bus to come to college or whatever. So every observation that can be made, that generates data. Data is a raw data by itself. Now you like to analyze the data because you want to make sure that it is somewhere useful. And you probably must be hearing for last 4, 5, 6 years, maybe a decade, that data is a new oil. How many of you heard about data is a new oil? Anyone? Indrasena?
No, sir.
Never heard data is a new oil? What is the meaning
I
of
was
oil? Yeah, go ahead.
so basically like if we consider the term data is the new oil,
Mm-hmm.
uh, considering the present day scenario with data, we can literally do anything, sir.
Mm-hmm.
We can generate revenue. We can
Yeah, so why do you refer to oil? What is so important about the oil?
so so oil revolutionized everything, sir.
Yeah, so if you look at last century, oil basically drove the entire world economy. We're talking about petroleum oil, not our hair oil or something. And we say now data, because so much information intelligence is going to revolutionize the way businesses are done. It will have a significant impact on the business, economy, revenue, and hence you are right, Chinna. In that sense, data is a new oil. But the new oil, the economy, generation revenue come from mining the data, identify the pattern, identify some meaningful, which could be useful. And once you identify the useful information, that is called intelligence. Use that intelligence to improve upon the business, and then cycle goes on repeating. Generates more data mining, better intelligence, feedback to business, next set of high-level data, and the process basically goes. So let's look at what is business intelligence per se. You can define it as a loosely umbrella term that's together that primarily means the business intelligence would imply that we are using a set of or a variety of information technology tools, applications. Those applications will make use of the data that is generated by the business or the organization. And after you analyze the data, you get the results, and those results are communicated to the end user to make a good, effective decision making. And what kind of decisions will come to that? But that essentially basically is what is business intelligence. So I want to ask you, what is business intelligence? It is a generic term which basically implied using a variety of IT applications that uses the data generated by a business or the organization, and the results obtained or the intelligence obtained is communicated to the end users or the user of the application, and that improves the business and the process. Like life grows and life does come to an end at a certain time. So is that true with business? There's no business that remains perpetually forever. Business come, they grow up, they come, and they probably, depending on life, they probably decay and gets over. If we were to look at, let's say, Dow Jones Index, 30 index, 30 companies, but in company keep on changing every year, every 2 years, when a two company goes out, comes in. Like when photography came, you have the Eastman Kodak. They invented, revolutionized the photo color photography, and then with the digital camera, they simply lost the plot and they are nowhere there today. And same way, if you look at even computer business, when I started way back in 95, Compaq used to be king, there used to be Himalayan Computers, digital equipment corporations. You don't even know where they are today. You probably may not even know the names. So business come, businesses grow. But the basic part of business is to grow. And while doing that, like even as a human being, you do make decisions based on information, data availability. For example, you want to coming from college or coming from home to the college, and you see there is raining, there's the data available to you is raining outside. Let me take an umbrella or a raincoat or whatever, something of that kind. And to make a decision because it's raining, you make your own decisions. Should you go on a two-wheeler? If you don't have a raincoat, you may not take a two-wheeler. You probably come in a transport bus or something or metro or whatever. So you based on things you do take decisions, everyday decisions. If you make a good decisions, they're effective, they give good results. Bad decision could basically kill you, and that the process will go. Now, decisions would like to succeed if your decisions are based on accurate data, which leads to good information. From the information, you drive the knowledge, and then you contribute the process. We all use the word data, information, knowledge. Can somebody explain and give me the meaning or difference? What's the meaning of, with an example, differentiating between data, information, and knowledge? Anu? Meghna, you heard about these terms?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so can you give an example of separating data, information, and knowledge?
Data is something that's single use.
Can you give an example? Explain with an example.
For example, in patient record name is some data, but for example, there is a table having many attributes like name, his appointments, and all those things. Name of a person becomes a single data unit, whereas the table as a whole gives some information about everything.
Okay.
So this
And
is
what?
how data and information is
Okay.
related. And
What
for
about knowledge?
like understanding, something like understanding it and making it in use. Like the table is like, how can we use the table in a particular industry, like or a hospital?
So let me elaborate. Let's say take patient record. You have a name, or let's say you are measuring blood pressure over or a temperature over last 2 weeks. The numbers or the values 98, 99, 98, 99, 97, they're just numbers. That's the data. Information, you are measuring the temperature, maybe along with other numbers. So you have a temperature recording available to you last 10 days. Now doctor sees that your temperature in the evening, 6 p.m. So you're taking a temperature every day 3-4 times, once in the morning 8 o'clock, once at 2 o'clock afternoon, once let's say at 8 p.m. And doctor sees that the every day at around 8 p.m. your temperature is 1.5 degrees higher than the morning. The knowledge is you're probably having a low-grade fever and need to be treated. But if he sees that temperature is consistent, the doctor says you are healthy, and that's a part of knowledge. So just the numbers by themselves is data. Information, you having a temperature recording for available to you last 1 week, last 2 weeks. Now doctor decipheres from it, are you having a low-grade fever, maybe running a typhoid, or maybe running jaundice or something, whatever, and then make a decision based on that. And that's how you can pollute differentiate. Does that make sense? So that's why
Yes.
you basically look at. Now, the more effective decisions you make, the better you are. Now, there are different bases you make decisions. I'm sure a lot of us make decisions based on astrology, palmistry, crystal ball. Somebody will look at the hand and will I get position, when will I get a job? You go to astrologer and figure out. And based on that, you make a decision. The astrologer say, oh, the next 1 month is not great for you. The stars are not aligned. You won't get a job after that. So probably so let me not even try for a job. Or palmistry, or look at the crystal ball. That people look at crystal ball gauging what the future look like, predictions. And in fact, I reading the astrology predictions in weekly newspaper was my hobby. Used to get interesting habits, and I have never seen any bad predictions by anybody. Same 10, 20 words, you can twist around. In America, there used to be, depending on how the weather is going to be, there's something called a groundhog-based prediction. Anyone who heard about a groundhog? No one?
Yes, sir.
What is it?
If any natural calamities are there, we have a groundhog, which is basically under the ground.
What does groundhog mean? Is it an animal? Is it a tree? Is it a reptile? So it's basically more like a rodent, like a mice or something, or a rat. You can look at that kind of animal. It remains on its own bill, and people look at on the 4th of Feb or first week of Feb. And most prevalent in the Pennsylvania state, you can call superstition, but a lot of people believe in it. And they say when the groundhog comes out of its own bill, and based on whether it stays outside in the ground or it goes back into the bill, they'll determine whether there's going to be continued winter or is going to be good weather. Based on that, they make a decision. The next 6 weeks is going to be winter or no. So looking at how the groundhog behaves, they probably, now there is no conclusive evidence whether it works or not, but a lot of people believe basically on that. So there's one way of making predictions. Maybe there may be truth, there may not be, with scientific reasons. But we look at our so-called analysis, we like to look at our decision making based on more on data, analyzing using our mathematics, modeling, and the way things behave. So essentially, we like to make decisions. The earlier decision we make, better we are. And for a business, it is very important to make decision faster than the competition. And you probably heard the word early movers advantage. A startup, particular segment, who start the business first, they take the customer first and they take over. So leaders take 80% of the business. So it depends who acts faster, moves in the direction, gets the product out, and this is called early mover advantage. And business have to be very, very aware of that how soon they can take decision, because if you take later, you might lose the business. And that's the one reason the existing businesses die, because they are not able to judge the environment is changing and they're not able to take decision in time. And then you end up losing, because by the time they decide, it is too late. So looking at the data, and in today's world, decision making has to be split second, very, very quick, because data is already data. If you don't do, somebody else will. And if you don't take decisions, somebody else, as I said, you might look like you look at today's. We all want to get vaccinated. If you look at the COVID app, try to find a slot, all full, nothing is available. So, and every day some hospital says, I'm going to give 100 vaccine today, somebody says 200 vaccine today, something. So whosoever get faster information, they can quickly fill up and go there. So depending on how fast you can move, critical information that could be make and break scenario for a business. That is true for businesses as well. If you do decision making based on the data, you analyze the risk and make decisions, then you probably do a much better job compared to people who just simply take a information or decision making otherwise. Now, if you are dealing with retail customers, you have to make sure that whatever customer says, get a feedback. I remember I was talking to one of my maternal uncle who was just hospitalized on COVID. He was in the hospital for 10 days, he was on oxygen support. And he says not getting a good service, then he called the hospital management. He says, when I will leave after 10 days, you'll give me feedback form. And give feedback, and this is not going to be any useful. So if you really want a feedback, you get a feedback right now, when I'm here, not when I'm leaving, because you can't improve. They understood it, and suddenly the service level improved. So if you are very reactive to providing feedback and getting a feedback and acting upon it, that does improve things, and that does make a lot of difference. Now, when you make decisions, there are two kinds of decisions a business would make. One is called strategic decisions, and other is called operational decisions. Strategic decisions are those which are basically impact you long term. They define the long-term direction of business, whereas operational decisions are on day-to-day basis. They're also called tactical decision making. For routine work, day-to-day work, to improve on day-to-day activities, when you take those decisions, for example, I said updating a website or changing a store layout, that may be your what is called the operational decisions. So operational decisions primarily mean for improving the efficiency, whereas strategic decisions define the long-term directions. Would anyone like to give an example? What would be strategic decision and what would be operational decision? Let's say look at in terms of college, our college. What would you classify as a strategic decision and what would you classify as operational decisions? Chandana, Nikhil, Amog, Amogha, are you guys there? Amrita, somebody should speak. Anusha, Bhavesh, I just see Bhavesh joining in and never speaks. Karthik TZ. Chetra, Chenna. Looking
Sir,
at the
question,
what
sir.
would be strategic decision and what would be operational decision? Can you give an example? Yeah, Chenna. Or other examples? Yeah, Indrasena?
Yeah, for operational, can I give, okay. For example, in a company, say there is no cab facility, there are less number of cab facilities. In that case, increasing the, based on new employee joinees, So they can increase the bus facilities. That would be one of the operational decisions.
Correct. Absolutely right.
And then strategic, maybe increasing its investment, something related to that.
Okay, let's look at the college. Let's look at your example. When you did high school graduation or +2 or CBSE or PU2 or whatever, you decided you want to join CS as engineering rather than mechanical, civil, electrical, management, or BSc, or whatever that is. Would you call it operational decision, or would you call it a strategic decision? Is my question clear?
Yes.
Yeah, so deciding to pursue engineering and computer science after high school or CBSE or PU2, would you call it a strategic decision or operational decision?
Strategic decision.
Why? Why?
Because that's the way which leads to our success. Or
Success, a long-term goal, long-term success is long-term career, is a strategic decision. Having chosen that you want to follow CSE, now you decide I want to join college A or college B or college C, depending on your ranking, convenience, closeness, proximity to the college, whatever, access, convenience, those becomes more of an operational decision. From college perspective, they want to open a new branch. They have a choice of opening, like last year they opened AI/ML. This year we are opening called CSD, Computer Science and Design, another discipline. So rather than opening a biotechnology or something else, or power systems or production engineering, when one decided to following or cybersecurity, they say let's follow computer science and design. They're opening a new branch this year. This is a strategic decision because then long term, this is where college has to go. That's where long term students will come in. But when I decide whether a class should be conducted on ground floor or a first floor or second floor, based on the number of students, or the lab should I make a lab of 30 people batch or lab of 20 batch? Those are my operational decisions. The business need to do both. So operational decisions are on day-to-day basis. Strategic decisions are that define your long-term goal. Now, one you have to be clear about when you take strategic decisions, whether you're able to reach it, what you decided, whether it will work out, you aren't very clear. The impact of decision will be known only after a certain time, maybe in a year, maybe college after 2 years will decide whether opening a AI/ML branch or opening a CSD branch was a good decision or bad decision. Results are not immediately visible. But changing the classroom layout, and lab structuring, you can see immediate impact how things are working, and you can make them change again. So essentially, to make a strategic decision, you look at around. College looks at, oh, everybody wants to follow CS, and very early people want to take other discipline. So there are no few takers. So telecom branch is closed. They probably monitor more for mechanical. The trend continues. Maybe mechanical could be a question mark. Even though there are heavy investment in mechanical, then what you can see is the amount of heavy equipment, machinery, lathe, all kind of things. But if there are no students, they need to make a strategic decision there. So current ability want to follow CS, so maybe to spend more investment time, branches into that, and at the cost of other things. And once you know that is the case, then you basically looking at the atmospheric conditions or environment around, you make a decision and then do analysis. What if I were to open, and this happened daily when discussing with principals, management, should we open CSD? Should we open increase the IML? Should we open cybersecurity? or robotics, and whatever. Then do different analysis, make your guesses, look at trends, and then call this what you like to do. Because operational decisions, you basically look at how you can make things better for immediate gain or immediate efficiency stuff. And those are basically done at the micro level decisions, small decisions aimed at improving your efficiency. For example, if you, let's say for bank, when they give a loan, they go through a process. What is the fellow's income? Is he working? Is he retired? Does he own an asset? That person has another loans. What's the paying capacity? Has the person defaulted in the past? And a number of, you make decision making stuff, and then decide that's operational decision whether to give a loan or not to this person. That is the operational decision. But should bank get into personal loans? Should bank get into educational loans? That would be strategic decisions. If the bank realize that a lot of people are trying to go education and education become costly, people simply can't afford it, they need loan. So if we start giving education loan, we probably make more money by the interest. So whether to start business in education loan or not, doing that decision would be strategic decision. But deciding whether loan to be given to a particular person or not, based on the parameters, would be operational decision. And that's how you basically do decisions. In either cases, whether you make a strategic decision or a operational decision, you need to have BI tools or business intelligence tools that look at the data, maybe long-term data, short-term data, and then make a decision there. So most of the time, day-to-day level, you do operational decisions. At high level, you look at very past data trends, then you make a strategic decision. And the mechanism you basically use is dashboard, reports, current trends. Dashboard is primarily for operational decision basis. Long-term analysis, if you do what if I would change this, then should I change the college venue from this place to a better place? Does it work out? Those becomes what if analysis, those become strategic. And based on this, there are different tools, techniques available. There's a software called Tableau, whose primary job is to give you a nice dashboard. Given the data, it gives you basically a nice dashboard. And it gives you quick, easy information to the user, primary management. They help you making what is to be done. The end user tools you can look at. Now you want to look at how good I am doing. You can probably look at your marks in each semester, put it in Excel, and analyze. Am I do better in internals? Do I do better in externals? How have I been growing? Have I been improving? Or is my performance decreasing? As the end user itself, you can make a decision and then decide how do you want to proceed. If you realize your marks are not improving, what can be done to improve upon it, to make those decisions. For data mining, other stuff, making business decisions, other tools like IBM SPSS, they're all again different tools. Excel can work with a small amount of data. Excel would not work with a large amount of data, but once you work with a small amount of data, then you see for large data, then you can build another tools that give similar kind of information. So based on things, you use different tools, and depending on the domain, you like to decide which tools to use and how to use them. Just a simple example, how a dashboard look like for a telecom company. Telecom company like to get a feedback, how people give a negative feedback, people who remain neutral, people give a positive feedback. And mostly you notice negative feedbacks comes very quickly. If you don't find something good, you immediately complain. If you find something very good, you really appreciate. You go to a canteen and find chai is cold, or coffee is cold, or your samosa is not good. You say, what is so bad? You start cribbing. But if you get an excellent tea or you get excellent breakfast, you really appreciate, oh, today this was excellent breakfast. So companies also knows that then when they get a negative feedback or a positive feedback, it again, they balance out, but it's important for them to know how things look like. Depending on telecom, depending on different sectors, they decide the importance, like web connectivity for the user. In this case, more than half of the users are saying negative feedback. Then whether voicemail they can access or other all kind of features, do people get the right signal strength? And based on signal strength, you basically change your carrier. If I know that in my area, I don't get the Airtel signal, then I'll probably go to BSNL or Reliance Jio or something which will give me good signal. So keep getting feedback and figure out and make best decisions on that. To do all this analysis, as a data analyst, your job is to find what realistic, important information you can find a churn out. Like we say, gold mine. Gold mine is not that you simply you look at the sand and dust and say, oh, this is the gold, let me get 1 gram of gold. It's a piece available. You have to go through a lot of processing, remove the sand, because gold would be distributed across the different ores, and to extract. It takes a lot of time and money and resources. Same way, for some time, it may require heavy processing to get the right information. Sometimes pattern could be very easy. And because we said that data is a new oil, and that is where it's a lot of revenue coming up. And so data scientist is today the hottest job in the market. Everybody want to become a data scientist because that's where they see that's where the future is. But if you're a good data scientist, and if you can do good data mining, you could be very, very valuable to a company to give right information. They can make decisions, and company can grow by leaps and bounds. They can go multiple growth. But if you want to become a data scientist, you probably need to have some basic knowledge of the domain. You want to become a data scientist looking at the loan application for a banking, you don't even know how the banking works, what the interest is, and then figure out. I was advising to a company, and there's a person trying to work on air pollution, and let this latitude, longitude. I had a doubt asking, tell me what is latitude, longitude? Person doesn't know. You're doing the whole analysis based on latitude, longitude, and don't even know what the hell that means. Or what is latitude of Bangalore? Person doesn't know. And you're trying to give him all the information. Then your basically credibility or information knowledge lacks credibility. If you're trying to become a data scientist, or whichever domain you want to work with, make sure you have a reasonable knowledge of the particular domain. Because you need to understand the domain to give meaningful insight, otherwise it's not going to work. Further, what kind of problem you are looking at? If I'm looking at air pollution, I'm looking at individual level. So I really don't care what is the pollution in MG Road. I want to look at what is the pollution level in my college, localized or hyper local. Can I get that information? Can I relate to something else? Can I figure out that 8 o'clock there is heavy traffic? That is where if I don't expose myself, I'll be fine. For individual health, hyper local data minimized to within few hundred meters, that's what you're interested in. So you need to look at what kind of problem you are solving. Do you want to look at overall air quality? Do you want to look at personal air quality around you in your room? So picking the right problem to solve is very, very important, because solution for one problem may not be applicable to solutions to the other problem. Now, any data scientist job, general experience is your 70% of your time goes in data gathering, cleaning the data, and preparing for analysis. As a data scientist, you only spend 20 to 30% time in doing actual analysis. More than 60-70% time simply getting the right data. But anybody, that's why we do when we say we want to do project in this area, I want to do PhD in this area. The first question I typically ask is, where are you going to get data from? Because unless you get the data, good data, what analysis is going to do? If I want to do research on, let's say, cancer patients, I should get a good data about the patients who are suffering from cancer, how their growth has been, how things have been. So unless you gather the right data, and whatever data you get, it will never be complete. There'll be missing data. Then we will incorrect. Let's say you are monitoring a health record of a patient, temperature, blood pressure, something, and temperature is 101, but while writing it recorded 110. Now, very rare, unlikely you'll find somebody temperature 110 because patient won't even survive. That means it is wrong data. That has to be corrected. So can you find outliers, clean it, or somebody forgot to measure the temperature? Then what do? You want to take an average of last two or something? So a lot of time has to be spent on gathering the right data, filling the missing values, removing the outliers. That's all becomes cleansing. And once you have the data available, you're prepared, then only you do the data analysis and then you build the solutions. And when you build a solution, you have to look at how good the solutions are, what is the value they basically give you. Does it make sense for the business to do that? That's what you need to look at. I remember a lot of people came, people know about CS, but nobody knew about AI/ML. So you'll see CS seats getting filled, but not AI/ML because they don't know about it. So it's because people don't know or have not been told. So I can do the analysis. One probably has to say, look, in the field of AI/ML, there are a lot more opportunity, a lot more good jobs. She will be journalist. So again, depends on the perspective and viewpoint. And to find the right results, analysis, even the prepared data and how to find the pattern. Sometimes it may get the results within a few seconds, few minutes. Sometimes it may take ages, few months, or even a year. It may not be that easy. So analyzing the data, it takes good amount of time, and as a data analyst, you need to make sure that you have enough patience before you can really communicate the results. Having understood the basics of our BI requirement and the data analyst, we'll now probably go over some of the application areas that we like to study, that where BI could be used. This you probably all know of. So we'll quickly go through and understand how BI could be useful. One area is called CRM. So any company that engages customer directly, they want to make sure the customers are happy. How do they manage the whether it's telco, whether it's a banking or something? How do you make sure? Segments like your health, education, government, or public sector, your retailers or e-tailers, or logistics. Logistics are basically do supply and delivery, supply chain. How does the data come from warehouse to your house, or whichever it is, or when to return back, how does it return back? In the finance world, the banking, insurance, finance, stock broking, they're the different area. For manufacturing plant, manufacturing of goods, another area, telecom, voice services. Now, if you look at the telecom network, voice traffic is very small part, and most of the traffic is video, maybe constitute 70% traffic. Now, telcos make money more from internet side than the voice traffic. 10 years ago, voice used to be making major revenue. So you know the business direction changing, you need to invest on the data side of it. And that's what we do. So when you do the business applications, you basically need to look at in each of these areas, what is that you really need? What kind of functions, what kind of things you are looking at? Managing your customers, targeting new customers, making brand awareness, or you want to improve the operations or efficiency part of it. Just give me a minute. I think my battery is running out. Give me a minute. I'll just connect the charger. Wait a minute. Sorry guys, I am back. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's look at the different application areas and see what could be done, how BI can be used to improve on the business. Customer relationship management. Every week I get call from some bank saying, can I get you a loan? Every 3 months I get call from Airtel, sir, we have a new package for you. Can you improve or something of that kind? And they're trying to improve because my existing customer, they don't want to lose me. They want to make sure that how they can improve and retain me. Basically, each company want to make sure that their return on the investment they are making, marketing campaigns to launch a new package, launch a new product, anything, they get the maximum benefit out of it. For each business, losing a customer is a lot more important than getting new customers. Your existing customer, and if you can't retain, it is a much bigger problem than trying to acquire a new customer. So they need to analyze why somebody is leaving. Is it the bad service? Is it the bad product requirement? Something of that kind. If the students are leaving college, I would like to know why the students are leaving. I'll come to that when I talk about education as a sector per se. So most businesses would like to identify the customer, especially the more high valued customer, which gives the maximum revenue, and there were separate treatments. You're seeing that in the airlines, people with business class, they have a separate queue to get into, they are the first one to get out because they want to value them more, they give you a lot more money than the other customers. And same is true for other places. Identify, look at them, meet their needs, and keep them happy so that they don't leave you, because losing a customer is losing consistent revenue. And if you lose large number of customers, that takes out your brand image, especially today's world, people are aware of social media, the way things work. Let's look at the health sector. What is that? The different sector. You have a patient, you have hospitals, you have pharmacies, you have medical research, you have individual wellness programs, exercise hub, something. The job of a doctor is, can you diagnose the disease in patient early? That's it. If you are a cancer patient, if you can be detected in stage 1, it can be easily be cured. But to detect it at later stage, it becomes tough to cure you. Like in COVID, if symptoms could be detected early, you're sure to survive well, but you detect it much later, when infection already spread to your lungs, it becomes challenging for hospital and anybody to treat. So diagnosing, how do you can diagnose? What kind of parameter they need to measure and monitor? Other lot of study hospitals do, especially for the insurance companies, that the customer is discharged from a hospital, what is the likelihood is going to come back again? Because if a customer come back again for the same disease, that means treatment was not done very well, and that could be long-term bigger loss to insurance company. So like to study how the treatment has been, and no insurance company would like that patients come back to the hospital for a recurrence of the same problem. So need to decide how good, effective the treatment has been. As we say in the life, prevention is better than cure. So now every insurance company, if you look at, they tell you health insurance, do exercise daily, do a walk, keep your health fit, measure your BMI. They don't want you to fall sick, because fall sick meaning they're losing a business. It's a big business there. Other aspect the hospitals and the medical insurance company look at is, are they being overcharged? Or are they being given over medicine? That even happens. or the patient being kept in the hospital for longer than what is required. So it's a fraud being conducted. They want to make sure the amount of bill, the amount of locality, the way things are, and then they make a decision. In the time of pandemic, it is the government how to manage the public health. Because if suddenly spreads, your medical infrastructure simply crumbles and no service could be done. Let's look at education as a sector where BI can be used. We don't see the retention problem in India per se, because very, very rarely you'll find students leaving in one college and going to another college for the same discipline. In theory, it's possible, but very unlikely somebody would leave KSIT, go to other college, or leave RNSIT, come to KSIT, whatever. Unless maybe too far away, got transferred, very rare case. In US, 10 to 20% students change the university, leave the college after first year. And each college would like to know why they are leaving, because that itself indicates a big brand image. And quite often they figure out that students leave more for social reasons than for academic reasons. Maybe they don't have right friendships, right friends, right ambience, social life, play facilities, and other factors. Academic education may not be the only factor. So look at how they can retain students, and that may even happen here sometime. Probably once you're free education, you decide where do you want to study, figure out what kind of courses college can offer. And that will basically be the strategic decision. Should we launch a new course? Or what kind of elective would like to offer? Will people take it? If I know that not many people take this course, then you probably won't even offer that course. Maybe course is too tough, people don't get marks, or this is not a job-oriented course. And so you decide based on those factors. Colleges also would like to look at how they can connect to their alumni. Alumni is the one that builds a brand. That look, our alumni are placed in such and such industry, they do so and so work. Not even that, if alumni are happy, they might even contribute back. So we look at the big names, universities, Stanford, MIT, there were hundreds of billions of dollars in endowments. I mean, the only student who graduated, passed out, they donated to the university for improvements. IIT Bombay started a process, and they probably got more than 100 crores as endowment from their own graduates. That primarily comes from alumni part. Now, what somebody can pay, how much they can pay, which alumni to be targeted, that again requires some data analysis, and those are the business applications you like to use. Application area like retailing and logistics. Retailing basically means you want to buy something either from e-tailer or a physical shop. How soon that can be given? If you look at Amazon Fresh, they like to deliver within the same day. They give you under 2 hours, 1 hour, something of that kind. Logistics can be delivered in time. They always ask you PIN code. They want to make sure that we can deliver you based on our support available. So they know where their storehouse is, where the physical warehouse is, and from that area to your PIN code area, whether they can deliver, what kind of logistics is available. And these are all available through business applications, how much time it will take. Otherwise, things are not going to work out. For a normal physical store, if you change the layout, will it generate better revenue? And they can do some analysis, look at salesperson. Last time they did the layout change, that happened, or what should come to the front. If you go to any so-called, the supermarket or hyper store, you always found the cash counter, chocolates, cookies kept at the counter. Very tempting, oh, I understand that you let me buy something. They want to increase their sales. And they have figured out from business intelligence that if you keep those cookies, the chances of customer buying those chocolates and biscuits at the sales counter is much higher than keeping inside. So they do both. They look at that part of it. They also look at your distance, your geography, your seasonal effect, what kind of merchandise a store need to keep. If I am a cloth merchandise, at Max or whatever the Reliance Trends, what kind of cloth I should keep. This month of May, June, should I really keep winter cloth now? Because it doesn't make sense, nobody will buy them. In the month of March, I should start a new fashion, new summer cloth. So based on seasonality of time, based on what people buy, how much people would buy, I like to keep that. I know, look at my audience, mostly I get people who only come with the medium size and large size. And very rarely I find people coming to me with the extra large size. So there is no point fooling myself with the extra large size. So again, they look at, do the analysis, and all that can be done only when you have right business tools to analyze how their sales could be impacted based on the factors, based on the previous sales, based on the customer layout, based on the place the store is located, based on the place around, and they decide that. If you are a, let's say, grocery store selling perishable vegetables or fruits, you like to make sure that you buy only that much which sells. If you're buying, let's say, some fruits or vegetables and you don't sell in 3 days, they'll become perishable, you become loss. So you're looking at the daily sales for last few months, last few years around the same time, your BI tools can tell you that this is the amount of good you should buy so that that can be sold again. Otherwise, you make losses. And in that sense, BI tools really become very, very effective. Other sector would be in finance, that is banking, insurance, other stuff. In banking, they make money by giving you loans. Now they want to make sure that every loan they give, money should come back and person should pay the interest. They want to make sure that every person who applies for a loan is a good customer, is a good credit history. Because if we give a loan to bad person, they won't get the loan back, they lose the money. So a lot of business analytics goes into selecting, identify customers. They even look at what is your age factor, how long you've been working, have you retired? Like if I am retired, if I want to get a loan for my housing, it's very, very unlikely anybody would give me loan. Say you don't have any running income, why should we give you loan? But if in 30s and 40s, it's very easy for company to give you loan because you have a long life and you can pay the interest for a longer period. Or should the loan be given for a 5-year term or 30-year term? So all those factors are decided, a lot of data available, and banks, one of the key business application is to decide loan worthiness of the applicant. Also, is the loan applicant a fraudster? Is he making a fraud, simply take loan and goes away, run away? And if customer is taking, when you go to the bank, you say, go for a scooter loan, they say, do you want a house loan? They try to promote you. Can you do a more business? Cross-sell. Sir, we'll give you health thing. If you do FD or you take this loan, we'll give you extra benefit of accidental insurance. They want to sweeten the deal. They want to make sure they get the customer and get the business. And all this, whether person could be sweeten the deal with extra insurance, health benefits, that again depends on business analytics, looking at how things are worked out. Same thing you see stock market and brokerages. Every time budget comes, every stock broker probably gives you some kind of advisory, the impact of budget. Because they know they need to educate the customer. If they don't do, other person would do, then they lose the customer. So again, they've done analysis that if they don't do this kind of services, you end up losing customer. Educate the customer, because at the end, brokerage makes money from the commissions. And nowadays, you will see customers have become very sensitive about paying brokerage commission. So you find brokerages like Zerodha, they say no commission. Then how do they make money? You always find a difference of, there's a difference of price between selling and buying. And in that margin, they make money. So you look at new ways of inventing, increase the volume, by the spread, they still have to make money. But customer has to be kept happy. And again, they have to look at a lot of fraud happen in stock market. I probably do, if I allow somebody option trading, future trading, somebody in a large future trading without having sufficient financial background, then going to lose, sink the bank. That's what has happened in the past. A lot of finance companies goes down because of fraud that happens in the stock market or the banking sector. You probably heard about Lehman Brothers, 2008. It simply went down the drain. There's another one, Planeta Dairy, in early 2000, went down the drain because of all the frauds. Insurance as a business, BI becomes very, very important because all the insurance business runs, they collect premiums and they want to make sure that the amount of claim they pay can't exceed the premium because they'll be making losses. So they want to make sure in this population, in our area, how many claims will settle. So BI tool should be able to forecast, like out of every 100 customers who take insurance, there'll be 3 claims coming. And you probably see the news today, like a lot of medical insurance companies trying to somehow deal with the settlement of COVID, because suddenly became as an impact. A lot of people went to hospitals and they never predicted that. So they're trying to minimize their losses. How much person should be charging? Because there's a competitive market. And can I give better product? Looking at the analysis, if I'm in the life insurance, I know the life expectancy, and based on that, I can decide how much my premium should be charged. Now the whole focus has gone to personalized marketing, individualized. What loan and terms given to person A, it may be different for the person B because the habits, the lifespan, the age factor, the parental heritage, the earning level, the education, all is different. So one rule doesn't apply to all. In the manufacturing sector, a company would like to make sure that the product they manufacture are of good quality. If there are any bad quality products, that will bring a bad name. So what kind of process they can involve so that they either they never manufacture bad quality product, or if it happens, can they really identify it? And you probably see these stories, something of that kind. I'm trying to pack, let's say, selling something, putting in a box, in a fan or something, and figure out that sometimes the person at the counter simply close the box without filling inside. Now the empty box goes to the customer, it gives a very bad name. So shipping players, how do they identify? One way would be, oh, I know the packed box weighs this much, packed box will weigh 2 kg, but the empty box will weigh only 100 grams. So if I can weigh and put that in, then I can detect the empty box or full box. So that may be too much. The measuring, identifying, doing would take a longer time. Other could be simply blow up air and light box will simply blow away. So again, what kind of process would work? And that's where the BI tools would basically come out. Any plant has machine, any manufacturing plant has machinery, and machine has a lifetime. They have what is called mean time to failure. That what is the mean time between one machine would fail? If you know that you have 100 machines and mean time to failure is 6 months, that means you probably see some machine failing every 2 weeks. So can you keep a replacement of that? Because 6 months after the machine would fail, look at that, or 6 years, you base plan on that, how much extra I want to keep so that manufacturing keeps on running. And any problems in the production time, identify those. So look at the past data, look at the processes, develop BI tools and make sure that you are delivering right quality products. Telecom is one sector where BI plays a big role in identifying churn. Every telecom company knows that we are going to lose customers. So they do the analysis, what kind of customer they are losing. Are they losing because of signal strength? Then they try to put better tower in that area so that people can get the signal. Are they losing because their charges are higher than the others? Jio get a lot of customers because of free charge or low rate charges. Then everybody else has to bring down these charges. Otherwise, they end up losing customers. What kind of plans has to be created? In US, there's a company called MCI. That was the first company to come up with friends and family. They figured out that a good number of people make a lot of calls to only their few limited friends and few family members. So they devised a package to call, if you make a call to this up to 5 people within this, there will be no extra charge. It's part of the package, and they divide the package. Customer becomes happy and they could sell more. Then customer are going to do that. So looking at individual needs, you plan it out. Like know that I am going from India to US and I need to make a lot of India calls. They divide the package. You buy the $50 prepaid card and you can make as many calls to India as much as you want. Then you will not make it, and they basically work out the plans. So creating plans, looking at the trends, your BI tools can play a wonderful role in identifying and improving the overall revenue for the customer. Like manufacturing plants, even telecom companies, service provider, they know their cell tower could fail, something else could go wrong. When network fails, what they can do to predict. If it is raining heavily, you probably lose the micro tower, they lose the connectivity. What could be alternative arrangements? Do people do fraud? That used to happen with prepaid cases. So earlier, the people started, company had no model in place or application to determine the balance in real time. So I can buy a $1 card or a 10 rupees card and make a longer call 100 rupees, and the company will lose 90 rupees. And I take a next number there. So that means they have to develop an application to make sure that at the pre-time itself, they know the balance and say you can make only this much call and cut the call. So you need a BI tool to determine customer behavior. Is customer making fraud? Is customer genuine? And look at that basis. Government also needs a lot of BI tool to figure out, is it going to be land order problem? They know that previously, whenever there's some festival occurs, community disturbance could occur, or results would come in, or could there be disturbance there? And they plan the deployment security forces accordingly. Maybe political rallies, maybe religious rallies, maybe some public functions. Can something go wrong? The government has to invest in scientific research, like our COVID vaccine development. If we don't do that, it may be too high a cost for us, because people turn angry, they lose business. And that's how basically things work out. So there are a number of business application area. You can look at your own application area, how a different BI tool can help improve your life and business. So these are the ideas we looked at. So you can look at the different questions, answer those. Can anybody use a BI tools? What kind of users we are? Can anybody be a data analyst? Does business intelligence depend upon intelligence of the business people, or does it mean the tool has to give me right information? CRM, customer relationship management, is an area which BI should use. Is BI applicable to across all? To me, answer is yes. A video surveillance system is not a BI. Using the videos to analyze, to detect fraud, somebody stealing things, that would be BI. So look at those aspects, identify our own areas and see how BI could be helpful. So next class, we start with data warehousing, the architecture, how that could be used. And I believe a class on Saturday. So on Saturday, we'll have a class, we'll get into the BI, look into data warehousing, then we'll look at the other tools. Any questions? Please do feel free to ask. Else, I'm done for today.